Hey Definers, welcome to Sustainability Defined. I'm your co-host Cecilia, and today we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of our regular episode, we're sharing an episode from a podcast we think you'll love, Source of Good. Source of Good is a podcast that goes beyond the label of your favorite products to show you all the ingenious ways they are being made better for the environment, better for the people, and better for our future. In this episode, we get into it with Eileen Fisher to learn how their iconic coat is sustainably made. You might already have a few Eileen Fisher pieces in your closet. I know I do. But you may be surprised by how this brand is innovating to solve critical environmental and social challenges in the fashion supply chain. If you like what you hear, follow the link in our Instagram and our newsletters to subscribe to Source of Good and explore more episodes. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sustainability Defined, and I hope you guys enjoy.
So how would you describe your personal style? Are you comfy, sporty?
I would say it has to be comfy. If it's not comfy, I will not wear it. I actually was into athleisure before we even had the word. I had a dog care business growing up. I basically wore synthetics all the time. And it wasn't until I started blacksmithing that I realized that you don't want to wear synthetics because the slag or like sort of the fire from the blacksmithing could melt the synthetics onto your skin, right?
Right. That's Susan Scow, blacksmithing enthusiast and the sustainability specialist at Eileen Fisher.
I am someone who forgets to buy basics. And so everything I own is some kind of statement piece. It's a little bit of a flaw on my part. But at least working for Eileen Fisher, the statement pieces that I buy are timeless, right? So it's not going to go out of style in a year or two, which is very, very lucky for me.
Since 1984, the women's clothing brand Eileen Fisher has been a leader in the slow fashion movement, combining sustainable practices with timeless designs. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of those timeless pieces and its journey from farm to closet. Any idea what that piece could be? Here's a hint. It's iconic. I'm your host, Rachel Lincoln Sarnoff, and this is Source of Good, the show that goes beyond the label of your favorite products to show you all the ingenious ways they are being made better for the environment, better for people, and better for our future. I really need to go back to blacksmithing for a minute. So tell me, what did you make?
So actually, my husband and I took a class and made our own wedding rings. But yeah, it was through that process that I realized synthetics are not always functional. They're not always appropriate. So that's when I started to appreciate natural fibers more. And now working for Eileen Fisher, we have over 90% natural fibers. So I'm very much into those.
For a fiber to be considered natural, it has to come from an animal or a plant.
I personally really do love wool for the protection against the elements without the use of chemicals. If you've ever been to Irvington, New York, and walked down the hill towards the Hudson River in the wintertime and felt that icy breeze coming through your clothes, that's what I imagine this coat being perfect for.
Susan is talking about the Eileen Fisher Icon Coat. It's long and flowy, kind of like a Japanese kimono, but with a high collar, slash pockets, and a raw edge trim.
We actually debuted it 35 years ago, and we've made it in different materials ever since then. We're so proud to offer it in our regenerative wool, and it has really clean lines, it's comfy, it has pockets, very clean, neat, and elegant in that regenerative wool fiber.
So tell me a little bit about regenerative farming and how that fits into the picture for wool.
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is that all of our regenerative wool is also certified to the Responsible Wool Standard. And so that's really important because animal welfare has to be the foundation of any wool that we produce. So responsible wool standard is still our foundation, and then we have added regenerative farming on top of that. So basically what's happened is that in Patagonia, a lot of the land has been depleted through overgrazing. And so that results in desertification. The land is severely degraded and it starts to become so worn down that vegetation can't grow there. The soil starts to erode. So our wool supplier works with their network of farmers to promote responsible grazing with the sheep from whom the wool comes. And so then as they graze and they're rotationally grazed, more carbon is sequestered in the soil. So desertified soil cannot sequester carbon. It loses the ability to have vegetation grow, to have the grasslands thrive, right? So the more we can protect the grassland, the more carbon will be sequestered through those grazing practices.
To get the thick, felty feel of the icon coat, they use something called boiled wool, which isn't quite what it sounds like.
So it is not actually boiled, but it is treated with heat and pressure. So some of the elements that you think about with boiling are there, right? The wool is a very fine micron. So that means that it's very, very, very thin fibers. That's what makes it softer. And it's not pre-treated for shrinkage. So that means that when we do the process where we treat with moisture and pressure, we are shrinking the fabric in a sense. And so it gives it this very dense, felted feel.
So it arrives in the factory as like a big, fluffy, beautiful mass. And then I'm imagining like Star Wars and like the trash compactor scene. Is that what is happening to our fluffy wool in creating a boiled
Complete
wool?
with sea monster, right?
Yeah. Understanding every part of the production process is something Eileen Fisher takes seriously. Just listen as Susan outlines each step.
The wool goes from Ovis 21 in Argentina, and then it goes to Ituzaingó, which is also in Argentina. They make the wool tops, which are the fluffy pillows of wool before it gets spun. Then it goes to Dangjiagang Yangzi Spinning Company in China, which is the textile formation piece. Then it goes to Dangjiagang Yangzi Dye Co., which is the dyeing wet processing piece. And then it stays in China. It goes to Dongguan Bacui, and they are the final assembly, that cut and sew piece. So you can see it goes from Argentina to China to the United States. And that's where we were able to find this network of expert factories to help us craft this coat.
All of the factories in the supply chain use Cascale's Higg Index tools, which help Eileen Fisher deliver on its environmental and social commitments.
So I am really proud to work with the Higg Facility Social and Labor Module, the FSLM, as well as the Higg Facilities Environmental Module, the FEM. And, my team and I review these assessments from the suppliers and then help them prioritize improvements. Because sometimes when you get results back, it can be hard to know where to start, right? So we really see our work as supporting the suppliers in making improvements to their human rights and environmental programs. And I am really excited to share that the Tier 3, Tier 2, and Tier 1 suppliers for the Icon Coat all complete the Higg FSLM. So they're all getting that social human rights feedback on their work and then getting it verified as well. We're coming out of this time where a supplier might have as many social assessments as they have brand partners, right? It used to be that every brand had their own social assessment if they were thinking about human rights in their supply chain. And so the staff who are focused on human rights at the factory might spend all of their time just measuring and completing assessments and doing this paperwork. And when we as brands come together and say, we're all going to use this assessment or these two assessments, we free up the staff at the factories to actually do the work of improving based on their assessments. And I think that the Higg tools really free us up. And when I say us, I mean myself as a sustainability professional at Eileen Fisher, my counterparts at the factories as sustainability professionals. The Higg tools free us up to spend a little less time measuring and a little more time working together on improving.
One improvement they found is a more sustainable dye process.
So BlueSign is a system for verifying that we are using safer chemistry up front. A lot of people think about what their clothes are made of, but they don't necessarily think about how they're dyed. We are very lucky to have a PhD textile chemist, Xiaofei Li, on our team. She just celebrated her 10-year anniversary with the company, and she has been really instrumental to us using BlueSign chemistry in our products, like the Icon coat. And really, we use safer inputs for the dye stuff so that we have to mitigate less at the factory level. So when we use more toxic chemicals in greater concentrations, then you end up having to do more mitigation of the wastewater before it re-enters the water stream. So I really love the fact that BlueSign is super transparent. On their website, you can see their lists of different chemicals, the concentrations that are permitted. And I just love the fact that you can investigate all of that as a consumer and really make an educated decision. But really the goal with BlueSign is to reduce impacts on the environment through carbon emissions, through the quality of the wastewater, and also it reduces the impacts on human health. BlueSign chemistry makes it safer for the workers to handle the clothes throughout production, and it also makes it safer for us as consumers to wear the clothes.
Yeah, I think that's something that is often lost in the consumer conversation. There's a lot of concern about toxicity, but at the worker level, that is an entirely different conversation. Like that is a literally a life or death conversation. So I feel like that even in the environmental component of your sustainability vision at Eileen Fisher, workers are highlighted.
I really love the fact that you brought social and environmental together in that concept, right? Because I do work on both human rights and environmental sustainability at Eileen Fisher. And for me, they are completely impossible to separate. They are so intertwined.
So let's go back to the genesis of Eileen Fisher. Is Eileen Fisher a real person?
Yes, Eileen is a real person. She founded the company in 1984, and she is still working with us, and it's such a joyful time to be in the office with her. I really love working with her.
The funny thing is, Eileen didn't set out to become the queen of slow fashion. At the time, she wasn't even a fashion designer, but an interior designer. That is, until she took a life-changing trip to Japan.
So she was really inspired by a trip to Japan and some more simple dressing from Japanese history, right? Like the kimono. And so she thought, what would it look like if women had a uniform that they could put on and not have to worry so much about the exact composition of their outfit? So she put together just 4 items that were part of her initial offering and sold them at a trade show.
Those 4 items were a box top, a crop pant, a vest, and a shell. They evolved into a full line of clothing, which includes the Icon coat.
I interpret the fact that there were only 4 items in that initial offering as being part of the blueprint for sustainability. So that's one thing that I love about our design is that you can find the same building blocks or elements over the years.
That's it for today. If you want to check out Eileen Fisher's Icon coat, follow the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Source of Good, a podcast by Cascale and Human Group Media. Visit cascale.org to learn more about membership and the Higg Index tools, exclusively available on Worldly. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. Views and opinions shared by our guests are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect those of Cascale or Human Group Media.